In this video, I'm going to show you how you can sign clients using commission-only appointment setters. Now, why should you even listen to me? Well, I've actually closed $36,000 in revenue and collected over 19.5K in the last 2 weeks. You can check it all right here. I booked over 118 appointments in the last 30 days just using setters, and I haven't pressed a single button myself. The only thing I do is manage these setters, okay? Now, there's 4 steps that you're going to need in order to get a killer setter on your team actually getting these appointments for you. And that's exactly what we're going to go through in this video so that you can have the same results for yourself, so you can start setting a ton more appointments. Okay, so step 1 is basically traffic acquisition. So you want to think of this as basically something kind of like you're booking appointments for yourself or closing deals for yourself. You're just doing it with humans that are going to be working for you instead of paying you, right? So step 1 is traffic acquisition, right? Actually getting attention from the people who you want working for you. Number 2 is VSL conversion. So we're basically going to give them the offer, the opportunity that we have for them to obviously help them make money as well. Step 3, filtration and interviews, actually interviewing these people. I'm going to give you the script for all that. And then step 4, onboarding, training, and actually paying them, okay? So let's get into this. Step 1, traffic acquisition, okay? So you want to be hiring, like I said, like you are selling, okay? We first need to get traffic and then drive them to our offer, right? Which is our position, right? And then convince them that our offer is actually worth their time, and then getting them on a call. Okay, so there's 4 main ways that we can actually get traffic to basically get these people in our pipeline interested in working for us as a setter on performance only, right? So there's 4 main ways we can do this. Number 1, this is the best one, is typically your network. Okay, so people who are kind of in your inner circle, right? Obviously, they don't have to be like good at setting, which is kind of the whole purpose of this, right? They just need to be basically hungry to succeed, and then you can kind of show them obviously your strategies, right? So number 1 is your personal network, right? Number 2 is your personal brand. If you have one, this can be really, really powerful. So I use Twitter for my recruiting a lot when I'm actually getting setters. So this can be really, really powerful if you have a personal brand. If you don't, that's fine. I would recommend going into different Facebook groups. So what you can do is you can actually go on Facebook and you can search up like remote setter like Facebook groups, and there's a ton of them. You can look up SMMA Facebook groups. Again, there's a ton of them. You can go into all of those different groups, and then you can basically post this job template that I'm going to give you, and I'm going to show you in a second, right? And then number 4 is online job boards. You want to use this as a last resort, and you really won't have to, because Facebook groups are just free and they're typically better. So I would just use that. Okay, so here's an example of a job post that you can actually use. This is the one that I use for Twitter. And you just do the same thing for Facebook groups. You just post this in, except obviously you wouldn't ask them to retweet this post, but everything else you do the same, right? So pretty simple. We're going to hire one appointment setter using DMs. Obviously, if you want them to use something else, then you can just change that, right? And then make a ton of money, right? We're going to give you the systems, and you must be hungry, ambitious, responsive, available for however long you want them to be available for, etc. Pretty straightforward. All right, so once you have gone ahead and posted your job opportunity, right, and you've got a bunch of people commenting me below that job post, what you're going to basically do is go bring them to the next step, okay? So after you've got interest from your job offer, you're going to want to send them to a landing page or Loom video, right? It can just be a simple Loom that explains a little bit about your role, okay, as well as why they should apply. So if you want to go ahead and just steal mine, again, you're going to have access to this. It's just the link in the description, and you can go check this out. But this is basically my link that I send to people when I want them to apply for my my setting or my sales role, right? So this is basically just me going through my offer, how much they can be, right? Why they should apply, all these different reasons why you should listen to me, and all these different things, and a little bit of what the company, etc., who this opportunity is for. Pretty simple stuff. After this video, I'd recommend you going and watching this. And it'll give you a really good idea of what you want to be putting in that, right? But the main thing is just to convince people that you know what you're talking about, that you actually have a decent business, and that you're worth working for, right? Ultimately, you want to give them something that they would want to work for, right? So that's the main thing, right? After the video, you want to let them know that if they're still interested, they can apply using a form. You can just build up a quick Google form for this. So there's 5 main things that you want in this form. Okay, this is really important. So number 1, their name, email, like contact information, pretty straightforward. After that, why do you want to apply? So you actually, like, the best people who are going to apply are the people who actually have a really strong reason as to why they need to do this, right? If they have a really big reason as to why they need this job, that means they're more likely to kind of stick through and keep working hard, right? Because obviously setting isn't a super like easy thing to do, or a super fun thing to do. So they have to have a really big reason why they want to do it, or else they're just going to suck, right? When are you able to start? This one's also pretty important. Pretty straightforward as well, right? How many hours are you able to dedicate to setting per week? So I typically, if someone says less than 25 hours, I don't accept them. But if there's more than that, then it can be, then it's doable, right? The people who I like to hire are typically people who can give their full time. So that's typically what I do. I know there's a lot of people in the industry who hire part-time setters, and that's fine as well, but it's up to you, right? And then asking them to record a Loom video telling me about their passion, right? The reason why I do that is because I want to hire someone who's actually enthusiastic, because those are going to be the best people on the phones, and the DMs, and just talking to people in general, right? Because they are going to be talking to people a lot, because that's literally their job, right? So if they don't know how to even communicate enthusiastically about something that they're passionate about, they're probably going to be like talking like in a monotone voice to prospects, and that's obviously not really going to work well. So that's a really good, and it kind of gives us an indicator about what they're like, right? Which is really helpful. Okay. So once you have a whole bunch of applicants, right, that actually submit this Google form, we go on to step 3, which is actually filtering out these people into a pool of people who are actually qualified, and then taking those interviews. Okay. So once you have at least 30 applications, right, and hiring is a numbers game, you're going to have to get a lot of people in order to like find anyone good, right? You need to start selecting the 10 best people to interview. Okay. And you have to have at least 10 people before, like 10 promising candidates, right? If you do anything less than this, if you have less than 10 like really good people that have submitted an application, it is very likely that you're not going to find anyone good, and then you're going to come crying to me that I didn't warn you. So I'm warning you right now, you need at least 10, or else it's just not going to work. Okay. Here are the main criteria that I go by when selecting people for an interview. Okay. So does this person, again, this is kind of what I said, do they sound enthusiastic about what they're passionate about, right? If they're not even enthusiastic about something that they're passionate about, they're not going to be enthusiastic about anything, right? And they're just probably just a sad human, okay? So do they have at least 25 hours a week to dedicate to this job? If they don't, right, that's a deal breaker for me. You can hire them if they're doing less, but I typically don't, okay? And then do they have a strong reason as to why they want the job? If they just are like, I just want the money, then it's probably not a good fit, right? There actually has to be a reason why they need the money, right? Or like a reason why they want to work for you. It might not be because of money, because of a couple other things, but these are the main 3 things, okay? After you selected 10 people you want to interview, send those 10 people a 20-minute meeting link using Calendly or some other calendar software. I've also seen people do group interviews. However, I don't recommend that, because obviously when you're hiring a setter, this is like a really important role. So I would prefer to take the time to do individual meetings just to make sure I get it right, because if I screw this up, then it's going to take me a lot more time than if I would have just taken these 20-minute calls individually. Okay. So stage 3 in the part 2 is basically actually taking the interview. Okay. So there's 2 things that you want to do in this interview that are going to be super, super important. Okay. Number 1 is to actually figure out why they want the job, right? So you're going to, like I mentioned this before, right? You want to figure out the reason why. But now you actually want to go deep on this reason, okay? Like you want to figure out like what is the deep, dark reason as to why they actually need this thing, and then giving them a roadmap on how they're going to get to what they want by working with you, okay? So you want to basically, and again, this is like basically selling, right? You want to look at what is their current situation, what is their desired like result, and then you want to position essentially your job as the way of getting there, right? So one of the guys that's setting for me right now, and he's doing an absolutely fantastic job, right? He's booking me about 60 appointments a month. And when he first came on board with me, the very first thing that I did with him, I was like, okay, the next 10 years, where do you want to be? And he was like, saying his goals, right? He wants to make a multi-million-dollar company. I'm like, okay, awesome. So in the next 5 years, what do you need to do to be able to do that? He's like, well, I need to start my business in the next 5 years. I'm like, okay, perfect. To start your business, what do you need? Well, he's like, well, I need to know how to sell. I need to know how to manage people. I need to know how to set appointments, and I need to know how to deliver results. I'm like, okay, perfect. So what we can do for you, right, is the very first thing, obviously, you're going to learn setting, right, which is a super valuable skill, like you just mentioned. That's the first thing you're going to do, right? After you do this, right, after you do the setting thing, and after you do this for about 2 to 3 months, you work super, super, super hard. And if you actually hit the KPIs that we have set for you, we're going to move you up into either a management position or a sales position. That's ultimately going to be up to you. You're going to have that option, right? And what that's going to allow you to do is build that second skill, right, that you're going to need to be able to start that company, right, to be able to live the life that you want to and actually accomplish your goals within the next 10 years, right? So I'm basically positioning, right, him working with me as the bridge to get to where he wants to be in 10 years, right? Which is like now he actually has a true motivation and a reason as to why he wants to work with me. And that's obviously why he's really, really succeeding well, right? So this is what we can do to make sure we actually get their why on this call, right? Because if they're just like looking for like some side hustle or like some random job to make some extra cash, it's probably not going to be a long lasting relationship, right? And I've dealt with a lot of these setters before, and they typically don't work very well or don't stay very long, right? So tell me a bit about yourself. What made you apply for this job, right? So we just service level stuff, right? After that, we want to go deeper, right? So we can say, okay, why is that important to you, right? Like, what do you need that money for, right? Et cetera. Just like asking questions to just go deeper on like why, and eventually you're going to get a super important reason as to why they actually need this job, right? After this, you're going to give them the roadmap of how they can achieve their goals with your job, right? So that's basically just what I explained. So maybe they want to be a sales rep in the future. It's like, okay, perfect. So we're actually a startup company, right? And we're really on kind of a path to growth here. And if you kind of work with us and set for us and actually prove that you're doing a really good job, we do have a position that's going to be opening in the next 2 to 3 months for you to be able to fill and become a closer in that role, right? So that's something that you can position that, right? After that, you want to qualify their drive. It's like, okay, so like you want to be able to know like, what is this person going to do if they actually get hired? Okay. So you can ask them like, if you get hired, what's the thing you're going to do in your first month to make sure that you actually succeed, right? How are you going to manage to keep a smile on your face when things get hard, right? Because setting, again, it's not a really easy thing to do. And most people that have worked with me, right? And again, this is why it's a numbers game. They quit because setting is a really hard thing to do, right? So you need to make sure they actually have the discipline. Okay. Then you can say, let's say it's halfway through the month and you're trending below where you need to be to make your quota, right? Or to hit your KPIs. What is your course of action going to look like in the second half of the month to make sure you hit your targets, right? So again, what are you going to do to take initiative to make sure that you basically reach our standards, okay? After this, obviously, we need to onboard them, we need to train them, and then we need to actually pay them, okay? Unfortunately, right? I wish they came free, but they don't, okay? So once you have done the interviews, you want to pick at least 2 of the people who you think have the most drive, the most potential to succeed, the most time availability, and all that, right? So to onboard them, what you want to do is you want to record a video, right, of you executing the appointment setting process that you want them to use, okay? So this is a big thing. I'll touch on this kind of in a second here, as well as give them scripts, SOPs, everything that they need to know exactly what to do without needing your help 24/7, okay? So this is a big thing. And this is another big mistake that I see a lot of people do is they hire setters because they just don't want to do the appointment setting and they like for all the wrong reasons, right? The reason you hire setters is for 2 reasons. One is because you have more higher leverage tasks, basically, right? So for me right now, setting appointments would be really stupid because again, like I'm just made 36 grand in the last 2 weeks, right? And my time is more valued on sales calls than setting sales calls, right? So it just doesn't make sense. If you have no clients and if you're like just starting out and you don't even have never set an appointment in your life and you don't have a system that's predictably converting, you can't give someone like that responsibility to basically create the system for you, right? So these setters, right? And like this is another thing, like people hire VAs and they think they're like they're trying to figure out like who's a good appointment setting VA. No one is going to be a good appointment setting VA, but people are going to be able to follow instructions. So if your instructions are good enough to get them to the point where they're able to follow them and then get the result of booking appointments, then that's when you can have the ability to hire a setter, right, on commission, right? So if you don't have that, then either don't hire on commission, or probably the better idea is to just not hire at all. Figure out the process yourself. Once you have the process, then you can outsource it. Okay, so that would be what I would recommend, because a lot of people don't do that and they lose a lot of money, right, because of pain avoidance, which is pretty silly. Okay, so once you've done that, right, you're going to want to meet with them at least 3 to 5 times a week, right, and have them send you a daily report on how many hours they've worked, how many outbound calls, DMs, emails they have sent, right, as well as how many appointments they have set. And then in terms of the pay, okay, so if you want to do things based on commission, again, you need to already have an established close rate. You need to already have an established appointment setting system and booking rate. With an on-track earnings of about 3 to 5K per month if you're hiring people from the first world, or about 1 to 3K per month if you're hiring from the third world, okay? And what OTE means, right, is if they put the amount of inputs in that you need them to accomplish, they should achieve $3,000 to $5,000 a month, right? So for example, my close rate right now is about 22%. My show rate is about 65%. And if we actually do the calculations on there, right, if we just search up calculator, So my appointment booking rate is, my show up rate is about 0.65%. My close rate is about 0.22. It should be 0.22, right? And then my appointment booking rate is about 2%. Okay. So basically, for every message they send, they're going to get this much of a close, right? And I'm expecting my guys to send 200 messages a day, right? So if we multiply that by 200, right, they're going to be able to get 0.57 closes, right? So for example, let's say you charge 2K per month, your average client stays around for about 5 months, then your total lifetime value is 10K, right? So basically they're generating times this by 10K. They're making about this much money for you per day, right? So if we multiply this by, let's say they work 22 days in a month, right? Then they make this much revenue generated for you in a month, right? And we want to make this around, how would we do that? We want to make this about 3 to 5K a month. So if we just do this multiplied by X commission percentage is equal to 3K a month, right? So if we would do, how would we do this? So we would do this divided by basically $3,000. And then this would be basically the inverse of the percentage commission that we need to pay them. Okay, so that's basically how that works. Maybe that's a little bit complicated. But that's basically how you reverse engineer how you have to pay them, what kind of commissions you need to do. Okay, but that's all hinged on the fact that you do have a predictable close rate and appointment booking rate. Okay, if you need help with getting those conversion rates, I have a whole bunch of YouTube videos for free that will show you how to basically set up different appointment booking systems. If you want the ones that I've proven and tested, over 50,000 outbound messages, the ones that are doing me this already, you can just click the first link in the description. I'll show you all that. If not, see you in the next one. Cheers.